Hey everyone, this is Rick Bosley sitting with my 2014 ALC at the Keller Williams East Orlando Waterford Lakes office. We've got a couple of ALCs on the call, yet not visible right now. And really excited that Jay Papasan is going to be sitting on the phone call with me. If you're seeing this hat, I apologize. We are in the holiday season, so I'm wearing a festive hat. Jay, thank you. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule for us today.
I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, I wrote several cards to some of the short list that my ALC had selected of who they'd love to talk to, and you were not only with the first, yet you're the only one to respond so far, so I appreciate that as well.
Okay.
I think what I've learned from you guys over the years is that lead generate, or 70% of leads are converted through follow-up and not the initial phone call, so I just got to keep doing it again. Well, I know we've got just 20 minutes with you. I want to make the most of it, and I've asked my ALC. You can see them right there. Do you see the visible? Tom just walked in.
Hello? Yes.
You can see them on it. Ask them all to ask questions and be prepared with that. So I want to make the most use of the time. The first question for me that I would love that's really unique, I've been doing these interviews with a lot of top agents and talented people from across the country for a while, and I love hearing one of two things. Number one, the story of how you got where you got, the Cliff Note version, and then also a typical day in the life of you. So first off, when did you begin with Gary, or with Keller Williams International?
Well, I'll back up just a little bit before that. I met my wife in New York City, and I was working in publishing. And when we got married, I was pretty clear. I'm from the South. I wanted to move back towards parts of the world that I was, I'd grown up in, and she was very open to moving. And we took a 5-month honeymoon, quit our jobs, backpacked around Europe, and we debated. And I wanted to go to North Carolina, and she wanted to go to Austin, Texas. So we ended up visiting Austin, Texas after our honeymoon for one weekend. It was I think it was like in December, and so it was like, 20 degrees in New York and slushy, and it was 80 degrees in Austin. And so we moved here without jobs.
Interesting.
So I actually, well, we were ready for a change, and we wanted to start fresh with our marriage someplace new. And so I freelanced for that summer, but it was a new town. I'm not terribly extroverted, so I wasn't meeting a lot of people. And I remember thinking, you know what, I'm just going to get a job. And in 2000, September of 2000, I got offered a job with Keller Williams Realty. My first job was with E-Agency, which at that time was a standalone division that they were building. Antoinette Perez, if you're familiar with her, she teaches Fierce Conversations of our International Master Faculty. She was my first boss.
We've had her here many times. We know her very well. We love Antoinette.
I love her too. And I can remember interviewing with her, and back then we didn't have the ABA. I took something called the IRA, and I also took a DISC. So 2 behavioral assessments, this multiple interview process. It was some of the early origins of what we call Recruit Select now. And I remember telling my wife, I was like, it's in this little building. There's like 25 employees, and they've got all of these tests. I'm pretty sure it's a front for the CIA. And, it's what the process is supposed to do. I was totally recruited before they offered me the job. So I spent a couple of years actually working in IT. I wrote a newsletter. I launched our support desk, and I did some research for Gary. And it was in that process, in the IT department, which is where our designers were, I saw someone working on what was clearly a book cover. And I went up to Brad, and I said, Brad, are you listening? And I was being friendly about it. I wasn't calling him out. And he goes, no, you haven't heard? Gary and Dave are writing a book. And at that time, we were in, like I said, a very small building. There was like 27 or 28 employees when I joined, and 6,700 agents back then. So it was still a pretty tight-knit community. And I ran into Gary Keller in the bathroom. And I said, hey, Gary, I hear you're writing a book. Did you remember that when I came here from HarperCollins Publishers? And he was washing his hands, and he turned to me, and you could tell by the look on his face that he had no memory at all that I'd worked in publishing. And he said, come with me. And so we went into his office, and this was pre-Agent Mountain, but he's always, since I've known him, had the habit of spending at least 1 or 2 days a month interviewing top agents. So he was in between consulting calls. And in about 10 minutes, he laid out a vision. And this is in June of 2002 for writing 13 books.
Wow.
And he ended with The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, which he said that he and Dave were planning to write before the end of the year. And he said that he and Dave had just spent the morning at a bookstore, and they picked out 5 of their favorite inspirational or business or how-to books. And he laid them out on the table. And he said, what we want to do is we want to model these and take what their best practices are that made them so successful and bring those all to this book. And one of them was The Millionaire Next Door. And it was that idea of interviewing lots of successful people and asking the question, what do they have in common?
Mm-hmm.
Another one was Good to Great. And obviously that book, I think it had 5 years of research into it. And he loved the idea that it was driven by real research and telling models. And there's one book I honestly can't remember. You'd think I would, since this was such a pivotal moment in my life. But the other 2 books were books that I'd actually edited at HarperCollins. One was a book by Bill Phillips called Body for Life, and the other was a book by Mia Hamm, the soccer player, called Go for the Goal. And when he laid those 2 out and was telling me what he liked about them, I started engaging. He's like, you really know these books? And I just flipped to the page where they had acknowledged me as being the editor of them. And that was pretty much, I think that was, the decision got made right there. And he called my IT director and basically told him to start looking for a new researcher, and that I was going to be interviewing for a position with Gary. And I spent about a week going through the interview process with him while we were preparing to write The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And I think we officially launched at the end of June, and we had the book to our publisher in November of 2002. So that's the story of how I landed at Keller Williams and started working for Gary Keller.
I love that, and I almost was going to call Gary out hesitantly because it's recorded, but I thought he offered you a job on the spot. It sounds like he still did recruit select you, though.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he did, and it was very much a contingent offer on, one, my behavior showing up the right way, though I'm not real sure what the behavioral profile is for a best-selling author. And he called all my references. He took me through what we now call the future self. And I can remember he asked me, in 5 years, how much money do you expect to be making? And I thought I was going to be so bold. I said, I'm going to be making 6 figures. And I had no concept of what it would take to get there. I just threw it out there. And he kind of looked at me, and he respected the big thinking, though.
I love that. Well, I don't want to take up all the time, and I've got 5 people on here who'd love to ask you some questions. So do you guys have some shots written down there, Isabel? There's Jay. Cool.
Hey, can you hear me now? Okay, great. I just got a webcam installed, so hi, y'all.
There you go.
Hi. I have a question. A lot of times when we're reading all the different publications that you're a part of and Gary's a part of, it comes up a lot that, you need balance. You have to have balance. And so for me, because it's very hard to achieve balance between your personal life and your business and what your business needs, and you have a tendency to fall short somewhere, my question is, what are your thoughts on balance, and how, if you could go back and change something, would it have made it easier for you to have balance, or what do you see that we can implement now so that we do have balance?
The whole concept of balance we've tackled into one thing, and we tried to take it head on as a myth or a lie in that case. And he's lived that since I've been working with him. And he's not the first person in the office, and he's certainly not the last to leave. And he's never made any big deal about long hours around here. I call it lionizing long hours. I never want people to feel like long hours is the path to success or appreciation or anything. It's about doing the job and getting the outcomes that you want. So, in this industry, my wife does what you do, and she's also on the Agent Leadership Council. You're balancing a lot of things, and so we try to be very, very clear as a family about what we're going to say yes to. And we're very, very clear about what we help each other say no to. And the biggest thing that I've been able to do over the last 4 or 5 years hanging out with Gary is become much more confident in what I'm saying yes to, and understanding the commitment I'm making when I do that, and then turning around and then looking and saying, well, because I said yes to that, we are saying no. Balance comes when you say no to a lot of stuff. So our mornings is no time for everyone else. We have a period of time. My wife and I get up at about 5:10 every morning. We have a trainer show up at the house at 5:30. And we did this to work out together, but it's actually been some of the most valuable time in our marriage because we have an hour before anyone's up that we're actually doing something together. And we do that 3 times a week. And she's more confident. We both lost weight. We feel better about ourselves. And then we have breakfast as a family. I go upstairs. I get the kids up. I have rituals, if you're hearing that. These are all rituals. And I try everything. I defend them really fiercely. And I get the kids ready. When the breakfast is on the table, I'll join them for a while, but then I get up and get dressed for work while they finish breakfast. Wendy gets them, to brush their teeth, and I take them to school every day. And I try to walk them the last 4 blocks to school. Now, this is all happening before 7:45 a.m. And I can tell you, in terms of my balance with my wife, my balance with my kids, I've already had really good interactions with them. Now, granted, they're 8 years old and 9 years old. Some days we were fighting over getting their shoes on and out the door. That's life. That's being a parent. But for the most part, I get to walk to school holding hands with them, talk to them about their day. I'm kind of launching my day with a different kind of platform. And if you roll out of bed 15 minutes before your first appointment, or however fast you can do it, a lot of times you start your day kind of frazzled. And so I usually coach people, the people I know who've succeeded at doing big things, they're all getting up earlier, usually 1 or 2 hours before the rest of the world, because that's time that you can control and make the really important things that are happening in your life or are missing from your life happen. And I've been systematically trying to add to that, like carve out little pieces of time. On the days we don't work out, I read. And that is really wonderful kind of meditative time for me to feed my brain and get some extra learning in. Just, 15 minutes of a good book can really change my trajectory and my thought pattern. And then I drop the kids off, and I have 30 minutes between 8 and 8:30. I look at my calendar. What did I time block? What was I going to get done today? I remind myself of what I said I was going to do. And then that allows me to start saying no when everybody else is just rolling into the office. So I'm pretty clear from the moment I'm in that vulnerable place in office about what I will and won't do. And I don't know if this is heading down the right path, but a lot of times because I'm clear, I get my most important work done before about 1 or 2 o'clock in the day, and I'm just kind of now closing up loops at the end of the day so I can go home. And Wendy has done this for as long as she's been in business. We have dinner together as a family. We missed maybe one a week if she's on a listing appointment. But her team will sell close to 90 houses this year. And maybe 1 meal a week is all she's missing because we've just said, no, we won't do it then. It's funny when you say no, how many people will bend to your will. Say, I'm sorry, I've already got an appointment. They don't need to know that you're having dinner with your family. They just need to know that you have another appointment. Can you do it earlier in the day? And I've got lots of scripts that I teach my staff around that. Because you're in the path of a lot of urgent needs. Most of the time, those calls are so urgent, they don't have to be addressed right then. They just want to know that you've got it. The script I use constantly when Mark Willis walks by and says, hey, Jay, can you do this? Great. Will next Tuesday be okay with you? I don't even think about the task. I just say next Tuesday. I've already bought myself a minimum of 1 day or a week. And it just rolls out. I've actually heard my staff say that back to me. Because 9 times out of 10, the urgency you feel from people isn't for you to do it right away and stop what you're doing. It's for them to know that you got it. Mark wants to move it off of his plate and onto yours. And if he trusts you to get it done, then some of the drama goes away because you've stated when it will get done. And so you've got those yeses and you're defending them with scripts and everything else you can. I've got an appointment with yourself. And you're just fighting it all off so you can stay really clear and focused. And by doing less, the important stuff, your life will really change. It's a really big deal.
Yep, I love that. What else you guys got over there?
Jay, my name's Tom Nestor, and Antoinette's my coach.
Oh, great.
And she's a big influence where I am today. So one of the things that I've gotten to is I have a full-time assistant, and I'm delegating a lot of stuff. I've been creating a lot of space around me and saying no to a lot of things. And I think I don't know, one of my challenges is having to deal with not having to feel like I have to be doing something every minute of the day. When I have, now that I've taken like 25 hours of real work that I used to do a week and given it to my assistant, and she's doing more work that I never got around to doing. So now it's like, okay, I mean, besides just working harder, working longer, and increasing my business, like, it's just hard to chill out and relax.
So you've trained yourself. You trained yourself to be tense and stressed out even in a semi-retired state, it sounds like.
Yes.
It's a really hard thing to adapt to the leverage habit. And there's a transition period where when they're doing and achieving goals for you, you're fidgety and not sure what you should be doing. I mean, if you're blocking 40, 50 hours a week and you're in the office, I mean, I don't know why you would be in the office if you're not working. So I'd go off and play around at golf if you can. Otherwise, I would be saying, well, this is covered. This is going. What's next? I'm kind of an addictive personality in terms of achievement. I'm always saying, what's the next challenge? What's the next challenge? And if I don't come up with something, you better believe that Gary will. He's always got another project. And he's the hardest person in my life to say no to. So, we're always kind of balancing those out. And I want my days to be full. But then, like I said, I don't want to work overtime. I just want to hit my goals, and I'll keep pushing them forward as I get better and do things faster. I'll just make the goals bigger. And that forces you to grow. And there's that, I've kind of found a nice equilibrium. There are definitely summers and weeks and months where I'm stressed out. When we were writing this book, the last month was hard. 2 months, I added it up. I spoke 33 times. I was only home in the office 2 days in the month of March because of this book. That was stressful. But then I moved out of it, and we spent, 2 weeks in Yellowstone with family, so we counterbalanced. But I'm not sure if I'm answering your question or understood it completely, but it's okay to let other people, to succeed through other people. Your job then becomes to coach them effectively. And that's what Rick is trying to do with y'all, is bring new learning. And your job now becomes to, what can I learn and teach them so that they can achieve their goals faster? Gary spends more of his time thinking about other people's goals than he does his own, because he's set up a system where when they achieve their goals, his goals get taken care of along the way. That's a really cool side of the table to be on. It's not thinking about you, you're thinking about them, but it's very, very aligned.
Yeah, no, that does answer my question. Thank you.
And I love how you use the counterbalance out of the book there. We're never really in balance. We're just constantly going back and forth, because when you're at work and completely focused on work, and then you shift to the other side and completely focus on family. So I think a lot of it's getting your priorities straight and knowing what the priorities are for the day.
So I'm not sure how I would focus if you were wearing that hat in my office, but yeah.
Well, I've got that hat here, which is probably worse. I've already gone a couple Christmas parties.
I was going to say, you should have seen him for the Addams Family retreat. That would have been interesting. He had a ball cap on.
Uncle Fester.
That's great.
Jay, was that you and Gary at Mega Camp that spoke about balance and how it's not really balance, where it's like
Always kind of about
33%? Did you guys talk about that on stage at Mega?
Yeah, and we talk about it when we
did.
teach the book. I mean, counterbalancing is this idea that you can find this nirvana state of balance is really a lie. And it's really something that's a very modern concept altogether. I really don't think that people during the Dust Bowl days ever asked about whether they had balance or not. They had a job to do, they had a life to lead, they had a family to be with. It's a very modern convenience to think about, am I balanced? But we talk about managing your priorities is how we try to shift the conversation. If you're spending an inordinate amount of time around work, which is not the number one priority, you need to quickly get back to your family. At work, succeeding in real estate, you've got to lead generate. And the best people are doing it all morning long. And that means a lot of stuff isn't getting done, and they feel very out of balance in their work environment. And that's actually what success looks like. It's messy. Things don't get done. There are dirty desks. I mean, really messy. People quit. People leave you. That's what real success looks like. Driving hard. You always have more business than you can currently serve. But on your other side, for your health, for your spiritual life, for your kids, your parents, your family, you never let those get out of whack for very long at all. Because if you make a bet that you can go off and be successful for a year or two and then come back, they may not be there to waiting for you. Your health might not be, your spiritual self. So we advocate very tight counterbalancing. And I'll give you an example of that. I've already told you, every morning, the things that are most important to me, I'm addressing. I'm taking care of my health. I'm taking care of my diet. We eat a good breakfast. And I get to spend time with my family. So I usually don't go more than 24 hours without having some real contact and time with them. But Wendy and I, back when our kids are 17 months apart. So the moms here have got children close together. Having two in diapers is a recipe for a lot of yelling in a marriage, right? Because you can't yell at the kids, but you're sleep deprived and you're absolutely out of your mind. And we got coached into this. We now have a date night on Wednesday nights. We wanted to build a habit of getting back in touch with why we had kids in the first place. And we tried to do date nights on Friday nights and Saturday nights, but what's the problem with that?
Everybody else is doing it on the same night?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can't get a babysitter. So we never made it a habit. You know, maybe we'd have a date once a month, but we would always be calling, and we're so busy because we're so ambitious. It's not like we had to get a system. So we moved it to Wednesday nights. There's always a babysitter available. We actually have a standing arrangement with our babysitter that she shows up on Wednesday nights unless we say otherwise. And everybody in my life knows on Wednesdays, I will work late some days. They're like, it's date night. What are you doing here? And I'm like, I'm out of here. Bye. They don't resent it. They just understand it. I've trained the world around me to know that that's my counterbalance time with my wife. She's my partner on this journey. And we spend, I mean, she's running a huge business. She went from $2 million to $4 million to $11 million, and this year will close around $23 million. That's her first 4 years. So she's riding the roller coaster too, and so we have to stay in touch. So that's an example of how we did it systematically.
Two things from that comment there, because the group that you're looking at, all last year hired their first executive assistant. On average, probably did anywhere between 5 and 8 million, and then have a goal of everyone in the ALC doing more than 10 million. Your wife's just done that. So what is their, looking in their first year with their full-time assistant with them, a couple of them have some buyer's agents, what would you say are some core things they need to keep focusing on as they develop their team and go into 10 million plus?
Well, first, congratulations on making that hire. It's a big step to succeed through people, and we were talking about that beforehand. One of the things that I've observed is that agents get really, really good at this business, and it's very tough and complex. And they've learned all these sales skills, but they haven't actually spent a lot of time developing their leadership skills and delegating things and training people. Those are new skill sets that you get to work on. So I'll share with you from what I've observed from Gary and what we've been trying to do with our team. Wendy made a commitment, and I made a commitment that we were going to freeze our lifestyle, that as our business went up, we weren't going to keep sucking down the money as dividends. And what we're doing, and what I actually have observed him do again and again, was we take the money and we say, now who can we invest in? Who? Not what, who? And we're looking for people to have in our business so that it will continue to grow whether we're there or not. We're really aiming towards, and our goal is by 2017 to have a 7th level business or the ability to have one. So she had 2 assistants and was building a foundation for 100 transactions when she was probably doing 45. But it wasn't a takeaway because we weren't counting on that extra income for us to do it. We just used that to hire the next assistant. And it was a transaction coordinator, and that took stuff off the plate from her EA who could then focus on operations and systems and managing Wendy, to be frank. Did you do your lead gen today? Did you do your lead gen today?
Right.
I've made my administrative assistant, my EA, she's my boss. She's a bully. If I'm not writing, she can come in and take my stuff away from me. You're supposed to be writing. Get downstairs. I'll handle this.
Awesome.
Right? So, I don't know. I would just say, I would look at instead of saying, I'm going to grow this year, and I'm going to take the income off the table, reinvest it in the business. Keep building a bigger foundation, because if you really grow big, you'll have to have big people around you, and they don't come cheap. Really big talent, on average, in our market, costs about $7,000 to $10,000 more at a beginning level than just the average talent. The EA that I could get for $45,000 in Austin is nothing like the one I can get for $55,000. For $55,000, I get someone who can manage a budget all by themselves, handle QuickBooks, and negotiate contracts that are legal for them to negotiate. They're a true EA operations person, and that's just $10,000. But you had to kind of stop taking money out of the business so you could reinvest it. And that's really where y'all are at the cusp of doing. If you're prepared to keep saying, I'm going to keep building the foundation, this is not the end, man, you could look up and have a team of 8 people, and your job is really as a coach and a leader setting standards. And a lot of the stress goes away. Like Wendy is getting out of the buyer cars. She's got a buyer team now that's 3 deep with the showing assistant. I don't lose her on the weekends anymore. That's a big deal.
That's huge. And then the other thing you brought up, which is what I wanted to give to you, you've been putting out a campaign with a 66-day habit. And
yes.
I asked everyone to think of a habit. I've got one for myself, and at the end of February, we're going to give you a feedback on that habit. Question that came up, and actually when Dean and I were talking, 66 days, is this consecutive? You know, lead generation is it 4 days a week, 5 days a week, or do you feel that to really create it, it needs to be 66 days in a row?
Okay, well, the research, if you're familiar with it, is in the chapter on, I believe it's discipline. I should know this. But and it's 66 days is the average of what it took a group of students trying to develop health habits to kind of get to where it was as easy as it's going to get. The reality was to build a habit for them, like people were quitting smoking or going to the gym on, regularly, drinking 8 glasses of water. Their habits they chose were all over the map. Some of them took as little as 18 days, and some of them took almost 200. So 66 is just the average. So I just want to set the expectation that just because you do it for 66 days doesn't mean it's stuck forever.
Sure.
But I usually count repetitions, Rick. So if I'm working 5 days a week, I need to do it 5 days a week, and I need to do it 66 times overall.
Okay.
So I usually look at repetitions.
Okay.
And that's the kind of how many cycles have you gone through where on Monday you show up and go, hey, it's lead generation time. On Tuesday, it's lead generation time. And that's how the habit forms. It's 66 repetitions. So don't think you have to do it on Sundays and Saturdays, because I sure wouldn't.
Right. Very good. I know that your time is valuable. We've already pushed a little bit. Any other questions? Dean, Harold, Tracy, we haven't heard from you guys?
Yeah. Going back to the kids, you say you have 2 kids. I think you said 6 and 8, something like that. How do you guys handle their time, or like once they get out of school, like during the week? How do you guys do that? Like, we don't want to get away from the kids. That, we want to be with them, from 3 on, and you must have a system.
Well, in the beginning, Wendy's system was to go into work after they were at school and to be home every day by 2:30. And that puts a pretty serious pinch on your ability to list homes, quite frankly. But it's very hard, if you're being hard-nosed about it, to force those listing consultations into that time frame. So her first concession was Tuesday nights, so she tried to schedule them all on Tuesday nights. But at a certain point, she just made peace with the fact that she wanted to build a big business, and that meant she had to work full-time. So this doesn't have to be your choice, but she grew it from between 4 and 11 million working from 9 to 2:30. But now we went out and hired, there's a lady that we call her nanny, but she gets them from school, walks them home, she makes sure that they do their homework, and she keeps them until 5:30 or 6 when we get home. And I really don't, I'm telling you, Wendy and I are pretty tough about this. We don't get home very late. We don't work till 7 o'clock at night. I'm usually walking out the door between 5 and 5:15. It's just my commute that I have to get home. So Mary Anderson's our babysitter's name. She takes care of them during the day. We have a couple of backups, and right now she's also our babysitter. But we have standards for her. They have to, when we come home, they have to have made significant progress on their homework. They can't just play video games and goof off. And we reserve all the project work for us. So if it's a big project, like a science project, she doesn't get to work on that. That's a memory, right? I want to be a part of that. So we just kind of distinguish what she's going to do. I don't need to grade second grade math. I'm okay with that. I'd rather hang out with my daughter and read books at night. So we just kind of identified the priorities for us were to have good family time. And so it actually works for us. She's actually more disciplined than we were at making sure the kids had their homework done by the time Daddy got home. Because now I get to play Halo with Gus and goof off. We can go throw football, which I like a lot better, frankly, selfishly, than doing homework with them.
Sure. Dean?
It's not that expensive.
I had a question based on discipline, because obviously Gary is a very disciplined individual, and I respect that level of discipline. you and Wendy, do you find yourself naturally disciplined, or was that like a learned habit? Was it a learned discipline?
I don't think I was naturally disciplined at all. I think I've always been a little bit competitive and always been a little bit strategic. But that idea of discipline, man, I had to get a framework to be disciplined in. And I think time blocking has been the biggest gift to me, is that knowing when I had to do it and building a habit of writing and researching has helped me progress as a professional more than any single thing that I've done. Because now I'm doing it at a time of day when I typically do have willpower, right? That's the will to say yes to what I need to do and no to everything else. And, you know, it's not an ideal time as a writer, like writing in the morning. You know, most writers want to write at night. I get that, but I can consistently do it. So even if it's not the perfectly optimal environment or everything, if I do it every day, every professional work day, man, I can make tons of progress. So, I mean, together, I'm looking on the wall, 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, we've published 10 books, and a lot of them are national bestsellers in just a little bit more than 10 years. And that's a pretty good output for people who also have day jobs. I ran KWU. I ran the research department. Gary has all of his other businesses. So, but we blocked off that time and made our big goals happen there, and then just kind of let the chips fall on everything else.
What book are you working on now?
I wouldn't think about the discipline being up here. Just be committed to your goals and time block them and see what happens.
Awesome. Thank you.
Are you guys working on a book currently? What's the next one we can expect? Are you allowed?
We are still researching The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. We really started in earnest about June of this year. Both of our researchers turned to that and have been collecting surveys from our top percentile of agents. So we've got our chart, the org models pretty much done, the budget models in progress. We've got 2 long lead time lead generation studies. So I'm hopeful that by early 2015 we'll have The Millionaire Real Estate Agent second edition, which will be a complete, largely an overhaul and update. So honestly, I still don't hear any complaints from people. The basic models, I think, work, but we need to address showing agents.
Yep.
We need to call that first admin what it really is, which is an EA. It's an executive assistant or an assistant executive if you really want to understand it. So we can refine a lot of things in that book and move it forward. That's our next big focus.
Awesome. Every time you guys go up on, and it's 2:30. Do we have a couple more minutes?
Sure.
I want to respect your time as well. I'm a data junkie. I love looking at data and analyzing it, interpreting it, and every time I leave that State of the Union or the vision speech with you and Gary, I always want to go and recreate that, and yet I never do. And I always say, how cool would it be to take that in a local market versus our board? How impactful do you think that would be for me to tell my agents to tell a story, or the amount of time that it takes to invest in it? Could my time be spent elsewhere? I guess I want your thoughts. Is it a worth investment to go do that?
I know that, like, Ben Kinney did that. I went out and spoke in Bellingham this last year, and he opened up with a 30-minute state of the real estate market. And he just took our stats from the vision speech, which at that point were 6 months old. And he kind of said, look, you get to read in our paper about Bellingham all the time. I want to give you a bigger perspective and try to help you understand what these two look like. And he was just doing it to establish his authority. Mm-hmm. I think that for him, it was about really becoming a resource for small business owners. And a lot of them who are looking at commercial real estate, that's a really great network to have as an agent, leader especially, that tapping into them so they would look to him as the authority in their market on real estate. So he did it as a way to establish authority, that he's an expert. And I've known people who've done it. They've taken the vision speech and just brought it back to their market and invited people to, like you're doing now, go to meeting in and walk them through the slides. And it's a good opportunity for you, and it'll establish you as someone who is an authority and is comfortable talking that way. And it might, improve your ability to recruit people if they see you that way.
But as far as, well, I always wanted to recreate the data for Central Florida, or if that would just be such a task that wouldn't be the time invested. Something what you're saying, it's already been done. Take it. You're getting the same point across of being a professional, helping other people understand the language of numbers and language of real estate. No right or wrong answer, just perspective.
That's a very big hypothetical. We'd have to get into a consulting relationship, but I frankly would never spend the time to rebuild all that data.
Yep.
Unless it was an offer. Hey, if you would like these slides and they were really, really focused, you can contact me, and I was using it for email capture. Now I'm building a product for email capture. But, I mean, our team, we have a team of 3 people who helps us do that data. And, I mean, obviously we're doing it on a national level, and it's pretty tough. But I would take whatever's already available for that market from the MLSs and relate that and then give them a big picture. I mean, I'm almost always looking for the most efficient path. But if you truly love doing that, go for it.
I don't love the research. I love the results.
Yeah, yeah.
Anything else, guys? Isabel, do you have a couple questions on there? We have one more.
Thanks so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Well, it's nice to meet you. Good luck on your balance question. I hope that you can find some more of it in your life.
Well, we're all headed to Arizona to see you. What are some tips? Some people first-time family reunion and sometime long-time family reunion. Some tips of what every agent needs to do or doesn't do enough while at reunion.
I think you need to go in with a mission, right? If you are, you have all hired your first, EA, I would say, what is it? If I could get better at one thing this year to impact my business, what would it be? And if it's prospecting or scripts, I'd attend every session that was available on that. And instead of making it a buffet and a smorgasbord, oh, I'm going to sample this and sample that, you're going to be in the presence of some of the best people in the country at those skills. And not only can you hear from them, you can walk up to them afterwards and say, you know what, that is the best scripts training I've ever heard. Can I have permission to contact you? I'd really like to follow up. And you might be able to get more than just a session out of them. But I usually tell people walk in with no more than 3 objectives, and hopefully 1. There's not always enough curriculum to fill up your day, so having a 1, 2, and 3 priorities works. The second one is have a strategy for making referral partners and following up. People give out tens of thousands of cards at these events, and then they never follow up. So don't ask for cards if you're just going to throw them in your suitcase and forget about them. So, I mean, we walked into it for each of Wendy's years. We would collect stuff. I had a Sharpie that I kept in my pocket. I'm not good at remembering details, and every night I would pull out their cards, and I would write down little notes in Sharpie on the backs of their cards so that when we got back to our hometown, we could add them to our database with some relevant detail, and we put them on a touch campaign. It all began with a handwritten note. And I can't tell you how much business we got, referral business, almost a quarter of our business last year from that kind of activity, because nobody writes handwritten notes. So go into strategy. I mean, I know a lot of people who pay for their entire trip with just getting referrals out of this event.
Wow.
There's actually a report, Rick, that you would love. They have, every year, NAR puts out a report on the zip codes that people move from and to. So if you identify your home zip codes, your home metropolitan area, it'll identify the top 10 other metropolitan areas that are moving to it. And they do it by county. So like I'm in Travis County, but we could see it was like Orange County. Then you look up the big cities and you're like, oh, so I'm looking for agents, right? And for us, it's like San Jose, it's San Diego. All the major California cities are great referral sources for Austin. Houston and in San Antonio. So we really focus on zeroing in on the people most likely to send us referrals. So we go in with a strategy for learning. We go in for a strategy for building business. And, then just don't hide in your room. I mean, as introverted as I am, I'm booked. I have breakfast, I have lunch, I have, coffee, I have dinner, and I have any energy and availability because you're going to be in the presence of some of the coolest real estate people on earth. And if you get a chance to hang out and spend 15 minutes with the Seychelles Van Poel or a Ben Kinney or some of these people who are true experts at what they do, take it. So,
love that. And who is your best referral source agent for Orlando?
For Orlando, oh gosh, Beth. I'm trying to think. We don't get a lot from Orlando. Do I need to right here establish it? The Papasan team of Austin, Texas.
I'm thinking you get 5 people in front of you who would love your business for your Orlando clients.
There we go. Reach out. I think Beth Woodall is the person who established it. Is she in Orlando, or am I totally mistaken?
I took over Beth's position. She used to run this office.
There we go. It's a dead contact. Look at you.
So you are there. She's in her circle.
If I dialed that number, I would have gotten you anyway, right?
You would have got me. So just keep that number.
Yeah. So Wendy's the one to reach out to. She runs our real estate business.
Okay.
And she gets on, there's a KW referral page on Facebook that is a really good source for getting good names. It's really important to refer it to people that are going to get the deal done. We tend to get a lot more commissions when we get multiple referrals to the same person.
Yep. Love that. Well, Jay, we went over the 20 minutes you allowed us, so I appreciate it much. Look forward to meeting you again in person in February. And anything we can do for you, let us know.
All right. Y'all have a happy holidays. Merry Christmas, y'all.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.